is a step in the right direction. And one of the things that we talked about was in this program, we're not going to have spring break. We're going to practice through spring break and we're going to prepare for postseason. And I think coming in and saying that initially gave our kids some idea that this was going to be a long season. So the obvious is that we're really proud that we were able to string together enough games and enough wins to be in this position.
You played in an awesome league. Was this a bit of a surprise? And is it I don't know quite how the pairings worked out, but you got a second round game. You get to wait a little bit too.
Well, anybody who knows me knows that I would always prefer to play. I think at this point we may sit up to 18 days since our last game. But I do think it speaks volumes for the respect that the program has and for the season that we had. So we'll take it, but any postseason game is good for me. I would have played in the first round happily.
Trina, what's been your biggest takeaway from this first season in the Big 12? And what do you feel like you maybe need to do differently heading into year two?
Our biggest takeaway is our consistency. All right, there are moments where we felt like we played really well, average, and then poorly within the same 40 minutes. And I think that's probably our biggest frustration, and not just as coaches, but our team as well. And I think that what we found is that these teams are just deeper. Right, we played against really good players in the American and the Horizon League where we've coached as well. But when Texas can lose their starting point guard and then they substitute in a freshman that then ends up being co-player of the year, I think that what we know is that there's this tremendous amount of depth and talent in all these teams. Differently, I would have worked on some more zone offense. We've gone back into our lab and thought, we've spent all this time offensively in the summer trying to make sure that we can score, against man-to-man and pressure. And then we were faced with some unexpected zone throughout the year. So I think that when we are able to practice again, we'll make sure we're far more prepared for that.
You talk about the depth of talent in the league. What about the depth of teams in the league? Because I think that is going to a high major league. That is probably the biggest jump is, 1 and 2 and 3 are always going to be good, but how much different is it when 12 and 13 and 14 are also good enough to beat you on any given night?
Well, it keeps you locked in. I think that we were in some places along our 8 years where we had the best talent. And so you walked into some games knowing you were going to have to play very poorly to not win that game. And this was the exact opposite, is that if you can't figure out how to play well, you can walk out and not win a game in 18 games. And I ran into some coaches, some other Power 5 coaches that said, hey, in year 1 or year 2, I went 0-18. And I went back to the staff and I thought, oh my gosh, surely we can figure out how not to do that. And I was really proud of this group because we felt like there was talent here when we took the job. Michelle did a tremendous job of recruiting really quality young women. And sometimes the pieces just don't fall together the way that you want them to. But there was a core here already. And we knew that if we could figure out how to build around that, then we had a chance to win a few games.
I think I read where Eastern Kentucky's having some work done on their gym. And so if they were to win, would you then have the opportunity to host that game?
I believe so. And I think that our administration is working really hard to put us in a position to host if that's how it works out. We have 2 coaches on our staff, and Abby Jump and Abby Owens, who actually work for the head coach at Eastern Kentucky. So that'll be an interesting matchup because Abby Owens just came directly from there. So wherever we play, again, we'll be thankful, but we are looking forward to playing at home.
You spoke on your core. How important was it to get your seniors post-game basketball this year?
Yeah, it was incredibly important. And I think that no matter what your experience is like, you just remember the last thing that happened. And we knew that this group hadn't experienced postseason before. And just the idea that we could get them to understand what it means. That when you play in the conference tournament, that it's not your last game. And that you can continue to practice and you can suit up and go to battle with your teammates again. So it was a really big deal, especially for them.
Chloe, man, coming in next year, you and your staff are in on some high-level kids for the 2025 class. How has the exposure of this league helped with momentum on the recruiting trail?
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And I think that what the visibility in women's basketball has done is you have a lot of young people that want to play in front of people. And if you even take a look at our crowds on weekends, like we're drawing really well. And I think that the more games we win, that'll obviously continue to grow. But when we go on the road, we're playing in venues and there's 5, 6, 7,000 people there. And I think that for women's basketball and for it not to be one of the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the country, right? Just any team that we go on the road, there's a great chance you're going to play in front of thousands of people. And I think recruits like Chloe Mann, they love the idea of that. And then to know that we're in a place where you can come in and you can contribute right away and keep taking the steps forward with us, I think that makes this a really viable option for a lot of people.
Roughly a year ago, you took this job. I'm sure you had short-term vision, long-term vision. When you look at that short-term vision, how close did you come to accomplishing what you set out to accomplish in that first year of, running the program and being at the helm?
Close. I feel like what we were striving for was a winning season, and I think that got a little sideways there for us when we lost a few in a row, and then we dropped a couple that we felt like we had a chance to win. But again, this team, instead of falling into a pit of, oh no, we're losing, and this is familiar, and we're going to keep falling. Instead, they said, hey, let's get together and pull ourselves up. And I think that was why we were able in the last 10 games or so to win a couple and to win the first game in the Big 12 tournament. That was a big deal too. We played an opponent for the third time, and we all know how hard it is to beat someone 3 times. And our kids stay locked in, and I think that spilled over into practice. We are excited. We are working hard. We're still taking charges and going after loose balls. So I think that we're just in a good space.
With the amount of star power in women's college basketball with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, what's it been like to kind of see the boost in popularity throughout the sport? And did, like 5-10 years ago, could you have envisioned this happening?
Absolutely not. And I think that what's even more nostalgic for me is being back where I played. And they already think I'm a dinosaur when I talk about things, because we didn't have media timeouts my freshman year. So anytime you got a break was when a coach called a timeout. And anybody who knows Lori Cardinal knows she does not like to call those. She holds them to the end. And then we got radio timeouts my sophomore year. Then eventually we got into some media timeouts. And so no way could I imagine that we're talking about not being able to get tickets to the Final Four, or knowing that the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis, where I grew up, is sold out and can't get a ticket. So it's an incredible time to be a part of women's basketball.
There was a bald Irish guy that used to sit in that chair that used to say about the Big East, you're always 1 week away from a 3-game losing streak.
Mm-hmm.
How do you adjust to that as a coach, knowing like you have to be on point? And I know it's similar to the question I asked earlier, but you always have to be on point in your preparation in everything you do every day, because one bad week can result to, like you talked about, a situation where you've lost a couple in a row and now you're trying to keep it from going sideways.
Well, as a head coach, it's when your staff becomes even more important, right? Because I can go in there and I can be grumpy and I can be in a bad mood because we have not lost as much since I've been a head coach. And that's when our staff comes in and says, hey, we're doing a great job. And the reason we know we're doing a great job is we walk in every day and our kids are happy. And that's what kept me motivated, is the staff, and knowing that our kids are looking at this season and saying, hey, we're competing. And sometimes as a coach, you're like, that's not enough. I don't win. And then you look at the people who are the most important, and we say something often is keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is the experience that these young women are having. And so they remind you, get up every day, have a new perspective, smile, work really hard, and try to gut it out. And I think that our team represents that. The wins that we do have, they were gritty. We didn't play great and just blow people out the water. These are things that came down to the last couple minutes where we had to execute and get stops and get big rebounds. And I think when you keep the main thing, that helps you every day, regardless of what the result of the games are. Celebrate the small victories.
The bald Irish guy smiled a lot. He was never angry.
I believe it.
You spoke a little bit about how so much has helped with the women's game and recruiting. It's helping in the Big 12. From your perspective, though, trying to find that next superstar, how is it different from you as a recruiter?
Yeah, I think the branding is just different. I mean, of course, going to Jordan is such a big deal, and these young people are rightfully so into Jordan shoes and gear, and the idea that they get to just be a part of that brand. Obviously, NIL has changed things quite a bit, and just the ability to make money off their name, image, and likeness. I think that the visibility that we have has made people more interested. And then when you come here and you take a look at our facilities, when you come on campus and you get to meet our administration and the investments that's being made in all programs, but women's basketball and men's basketball, and the conversations that we're able to have and the staffing we're able to have, it's night and day from a lot of places that I'm aware of, and it helps us tremendously in recruiting.
Thanks, Coach.